We're insane. Truly.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, did you start recording as you said we're insane?
Yes.
Nice.
I thought it was a proper time to start, just as an introduction. And
Accurate.
to the listeners, no, I definitely did not start the recording mid-sentence. Anyways,
What are we talking
I'm
about?
one of your hosts, Brody,
And I'm your other one of your hosts, Sophia.
and we're bad at grammar.
Yes.
So the question is, Sophia, go, hit it.
I lost it. Hang on.
No, it was at the top. It was near the top.
It was?
Yeah, I just pointed it out to you.
And I scrolled.
It's right there. It's the second question.
What does blank smell like?
Okay.
Fear, victory, existential crisis, etc.
So basically, if concepts like an existential crisis, the concept of an existential crisis, not the existential crisis itself, what would that smell like? So happiness smells like a warm, freshly baked cake. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I feel like happiness is like a fresher scent to it, like fruit. It smells like watermelon.
Like what? What is watermelon? Kind of. It smells purple. I would say it's too purple. And when I think happy, I think yellow. When I think yellow, I think warm, freshly baked cake, or like kind of a good bakery smell, almost.
Good bakery smell makes me think light brown.
Exactly. Okay.
That's
so,
not yellow.
Okay, so what's a yellow smell?
Inhaling
Someone
the lack of
smell
yellow.
the color yellow real quick so you can know.
I feel like it smells like flowers. And
I like how you're breathing heavier as you try to imagine the
Yes.
smell of yellow. I would imagine yellow smelling like probably like flowers. This is really not good for audio recording. Anyways, now this is ASMR where you just hear us sniff aggressively.
Oh no, that's terrible. It smells like flowers.
Okay.
And bananas.
Well, okay, so I feel like bananas is a given because bananas are yellow. So flowers, bananas, and can we say just like, okay, how about it's pleasantly scented banana cake? Because it's like warm, fresh, like that freshly baked cake, but also banana, and then but also like the sweet fragrance of flowers all combined.
Okay.
All right. So imagine that. Inhale deeply through your nose. And that's what happiness smells like. So I hope you enjoyed. So, okay, next example, we said fear.
Fear.
I feel like we talked about this. We did talk about this
I think
one
we
before.
did.
Do you remember what it was?
I think we determined it smells like, because we were imagining like a dark, damp cave. So like
Right.
a mildewy smell.
Yeah.
And like,
So
you know how when you step outside and it's like 16 degrees and you can smell that it's cold? I feel like it has that smell too.
Right. And then like also when it's about to be a terrible storm and there's like that tension, almost atmospheric pressure in the air, and you just have a sense of it. Maybe not necessarily quite a smell, but kind of a smell. So you smell the rain, you smell the cold, and it's also like a dark cave and it's very damp, and then like blood. Because blood has a very unpleasant, like sickly smell.
That's true.
But it's makes you very uneasy, sick to your stomach, which is basically what fear does. So
yeah.
Don't inhale deeply. We don't want to smell that one. That's a bad smell. Well, unless you like the smell of blood.
So if you're a vampire, inhale deeply and feast on the fear. Otherwise, happiness. On a lighter note, we have, what does victory smell like?
Victory. So it's success. I feel like you have to come up with the words first, and then you have to come up with like a scenario in your mind, almost like all the experiences, and then you have to try to change that into a smell somehow.
Yes.
So first off, victory is it's success, it's it's like the relief of finishing a race, saying I've conquered it. And so it's almost like resting in that success. What does victory smell like?
Okay, here's the thing. I feel like, you're victorious after you've, given your blood, sweat, and tears, as they say.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would smell like sweat, except that victory is a good thing. So I feel like it should have a good smell. So I don't know.
I feel like victory smells like kind of sweet, almost sweet to the point of sickly flowers and like just a hint of sweat. Like sweet to the point of sickly
What
flowers.
about honey?
Honey, true. Yeah, I could see that. Well, I can't see it. You can't see smells, but unless you have like really big magnifying glass. But okay, so victory is sickly sweet flowers, honey, and a hint of sweat. Inhale deeply if you've just won something.
Okay.
We're gonna assume you are all inhaling deeply right now.
What about existential crisis?
Existential crisis. That's a complicated one.
It is.
I think it depends on why you're having an existential crisis. Like what in what way? So I would say existential crisis, it's basically saying this is all pointless. Like, why do we do anything? Realizing, like, if we're just a bunch of atoms, then what's the point? If I don't have free will, what's the point? So that's existential crisis. It's like questioning and like a hint of fear, also a hint of optimism almost, though. So we have to figure out the smells of like other characteristics first, and then
what's the hint of optimism?
The hint of optimism is, so when you have an existential crisis, there is the opportunity to come out of it saying, well, so all those things I previously didn't like with, how I viewed the world, I have an opportunity to change and actually possibly overcome. So it's usually most people don't have any optimism in existential crises, but maybe I do. Maybe that's just me being weird with existential crises. Crises. So questioning. I feel like questioning would smell like wet fur. And like a bit of oil. A bit of an oily smell.
Why?
Well, okay, so just think about...
Okay, when you're having an existential crisis
and then
you turn into a bear...
We're talking about questioning. Okay. When you're questioning and you turn into a bear?
Interrogating a wet bear.
You're questioning a wet bear.
Who has oil on his nose.
Right. Well, oil on your nose because you're picking up the scent of the oil.
Okay.
Yeah. And also you're smelling the bear for some reason.
I'm just generally in the room with the bear.
Okay, so you're actually watching the scent. You're watching? You're watching someone question the bear with oil on their nose in case they need to light their nose on fire. So I don't know. Give me a better example then. What does questioning smell like?
Okay, so questioning is like uncertainty.
Right.
So, okay, I don't know, but why wet fur and oil?
Okay, so you just said uncertainty. If you want to talk about anything that's uncertain, is the cleanliness of wet fur. When you're hugging your dog and you're questioning, am I going to get sick from this? Or you're laying on a fur carpet and you feel like there's probably a bunch of lint and old rotten food in this carpet, so I probably shouldn't be laying on it. I'd say there's a lot of uncertainty. And then also like when you get oil on your hands and you're like questioning whether or not you take the time to go wash your hands inside and get oil on the doorknob, or you just deal with the oil on your hands. It's like, it's slightly unpleasant, but it's also like normal in a way. It's uncomfortable, but like, yeah, I've been here before. Familiar and unpleasant, but not like terribly unpleasant, like pain.
Very weird, but I'll take it.
All right. So wet, I'd say lukewarm for an oil.
So that's uncertainty or
That's
questioning.
right?
And then I feel like the optimism should be like a teaspoon of honey.
I was gonna say hint of lime. Optimism is a hint of lime.
I could see lime.
So, existential crisis is just wet for an oil with a hint of lime.
Oh dear.
And it's also like, the fur doesn't smell very good. It's like, it doesn't smell dirty, but it's just like wet dog almost.
It just smells like outside.
Yeah.
Like when my little siblings come in the house and I can tell that they smell like dirt.
Yeah. Well, actually, dirt smells good. Dirt on people smells less good.
Yeah.
I think it's the people that ruin the smell of dirt, personally. So what does dirt as the concept smell like?
I feel like that's hard to answer because dirt already has a smell as a thing.
Yeah, I think we did this last time we talked about this. I asked, what does a doctor smell like? And you were like, well, doctors technically already have a smell. Generally. It's like, okay, true. Doctors smell like a cool lab coat with latex gloves.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely the smell of latex.
And a very faint hint of hand sanitizer.
Yeah, it just smells very clean. Like when you go to the dentist and it just smells
But then also like
clean and very antibacterial.
in the background you also have to count in like old people smell. Or sick person smell.
Yeah.
So
a little bit of that.
A cool lab coat, latex gloves, hint of hand sanitizer, and background, like base almost of old people smell.
But mostly it's the latex. That's the most prominent thing.
Especially when you're at the dentist's office. If you're counting dentists as doctors, which technically you shouldn't, but if you threw them in there, you're definitely smelling the latex gloves because they're in your mouth. Now sniff deeply if you'd like to smell a doctor.
Oh my goodness.
You can't say I'm weird. Everybody's doing it, I think. I'm going to count on everybody doing it.
I wasn't doing it.
Oh, wait. And then everyone's listening to this later on. So technically, I'm alone in doing this right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's someone else on the planet who's smelling a doctor right now. So, anyways. Okay, next smell. What's a very mixed feeling? Like something that's almost contradictory.
Like bittersweetness?
Yeah. Well, bittersweet both have smells. So, what about a paradox? What does a paradox smell like?
Oh.
It smells like steel. No. I feel like it smells like graphite and I don't know why. I keep thinking it smells like a pencil sharpener because that's like a mix of steel and also like pencil shavings and graphite.
Interesting.
I don't know. What do you think a paradox would smell like?
Well, when I think of a paradox, I feel like that also has notes of uncertainty because you're like, how does this work? So it has like notes of questioning and uncertainty. So then we're back to wet fur and oil.
Okay, so how about we say the oil, steel, and graphite. Inhale deeply if you want to smell that. A paradox.
Yeah.
It's a very sharp smell.
It is.
Very metallic.
And pungent.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the concept of machinery... What would the concept of machinery smell like?
That would smell like metal and...
Old warehouse. Dust. It would smell like dust.
Yes.
Old warehouse. like I feel like there's oil, but then there's also like lubricant for like hard machinery, and there's like two different smells almost. Because oil, when you get it in a bottle for your car, it smells new, um, and much cleaner. But when you see like the black goo on like bolts and stuff like that, that's lubricant, not necessarily oil, and that's a different smell. So we'll call it machinery lubricant. Dust and old warehouse would be the smell of machinery.
Yeah.
And not machinery generally, we mean the concept, just to clarify. Inhale deeply if you want to smell that. I don't want to. Actually, so
Yeah. Have fun, guys.
hmm.
What would steampunk smell like?
Oh, well, first off, steam, easily.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out if steam has a smell because it's literally just water.
Well, usually it's coming off of something. So, like, think about when you're ironing something. If you've ever smelt an iron, it's. Oh, what does an iron smell like? How would you describe
I
that?
don't know. I'm trying to figure that out.
So it's both metallic, it's warm, it's humid. It's like the cloth is like toasting almost, but it's not getting burnt. It's
Yeah.
okay. We'll call it toasty clothing. Toasty
Okay.
clothing smell is the smell you get when you iron clothing. That's what you would get, but a little cleaner, less toast, more just
Clothing.
less toast, more more
Yeah.
clothing.
Less toast, more clothing. Okay.
So toasty clothing smell from ironing clothes, less toast, more clothing. That's the beginning of steampunk smell, mind you. Just to clarify what kind of steam smell we're getting. And then I feel like coal.
Yeah.
Coal is there should be different categories. So there's a base, a background, hint, and then like generally what someone would identify. So
I feel like there's a smell of pennies too.
yeah, I feel like pennies would be background, coal would be base. Steam would be the main thing you identify. It's the main, and then you'd have a hint of like electrical burning almost.
Yeah.
So like an old light bulb or something like that, when a wire short circuits and you smell the smoke from that.
Yeah.
That's a pleasant smell. I kind of like that. Well, it's not necessarily pleasant, but it's interesting.
I feel like that's a decent mix, actually.
Yeah. Inhale deeply if you want to smell steampunk.
Yeah. Join us Wednesdays for some meditation and breathing exercises.
And really concerning smells that you don't know where somebody came up with that. Like the smell of questioning and existential crisis with hint of lime. Okay, one more. What does space smell like?
Okay, scientifically, I feel like the answer would have to be nothing because it's a vacuum.
Of course.
But I feel like it also smells cold.
It's, definitely cold. Dark, it smells dark because that makes sense.
I was going to say that, but then I was going to be like, but what does dark smell like? So now we have to figure out what does darkness smell like?
Okay. I feel like darkness is undertone, again, of kind of blood almost, just because it's a very sickly, unsettling smell. And then dark. It's also just completely engulfing.
Do cheap Halloween costumes have a smell?
Generally, I would say like plastic almost.
Yeah, I feel like there's a plasticky smell too.
Plasticky? I was going to say like the kind of smell you get when you're in a hug almost. Like, I know it changes from person to person, but generally. Like if you had to find the average of what the smell of people is when you hug them,
I have no idea what that would be.
just average the smell because you can do that mathematically. um. Well, okay. I kind of like your idea better with the old Halloween costume because the hug one is not very
Yeah.
definable. Okay, so undertone of blood. Then you said old Halloween costume.
Cheap Halloween costume.
Cheap Halloween costume.
Like you walked into Party City and you got a costume and walked back out and it just smells like plastic.
Yeah. Oh, and then it's like it's cold though. It's like really cold.
Is this darkness still?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say that space definitely has that smell.
Yeah. Well, actually, the thing is, you have to define whether or not it's cold or warm because there can be warm darkness. I feel like, so it wouldn't necessarily be cold. Well, I guess this is the smell though, not the quality. Cold, a cold, blood-stained, new Halloween costume. Cheap Halloween costume. Why is it bloodstained? That's unsettling.
It is.
Interesting.
That sounds like an episode of a crime TV show.
Yeah, someone goes into Party City and just finds. They find
they find the body like dumped between the clothing racks.
Oh my goodness.
That's how they start.
Well, no. It'd be more like they find the perfect Halloween costume, and then it's like, it's I don't know, some Halloween costume with a bunch of blood on it. So it's like a vampire costume, and then they pick it up and it's like, oh, that's so cool. It looks so realistic. Why is it wet? And then they see that there's actually just a dead body.
Yeah.
This has turned into a true crime podcast now. Thank you for joining us.
True, yeah. No,
fiction crime.
Or like they go into the changing room and one of the changing rooms has a dead body in it.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
That's...
It would be one of those.
Okay, anyways. Darkness is the smell of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So space smells like that.
Wow. And cold, like really cold.
Like a freezer.
Oh my goodness. Wait, I feel like space could almost... No, I was going to say like a meat freezer, but the meat does not fit space at all.
No. I don't know. I feel like space doesn't have blood. So maybe space has like the smell of darkness minus the blood. Or maybe there's just so little blood that you like can barely smell it.
Yeah, it's very extremely subtle. It's simply the darkness is the unsettling part, and so that's why you have just the hint of blood.
Okay. I feel like the freezer smell is the overwhelming smell.
Okay.
Like so, it overpowers most of the darkness.
Freezer, really cold, cheap Halloween costume. You just found a dead body, and hint of blood. Sniff deeply if you want to smell whatever that is. I really don't want to go out in space now.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to before, but it'd be interesting to die of whatever happens to you when you go out in space. I feel like the gas immediately tries to escape from your body, and then all of that heat basically
I feel like I
dissipating
know
from
what
you.
happens to you because I feel like I've seen it in TV shows, but I can't remember what it is that happens.
You either freeze to death or burn to death, and both of which are very extreme. So, watch Sunshine if you want Sunshine. Watch the movie Sunshine if you want to see people freeze in space or burn in space. There's examples of both in said movie. So, it's also violent, so proceed with caution. Well, I think we've explored a pretty good slew of different smells. Some unpleasant. Well, most of them were unpleasant.
Yeah.
But now we know what concepts smell like. So we've learned, we've grown. So thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this, our first official episode. Yeah. Before
What?
you go, make sure to comment down below with different comments. I mean, different concepts and what their smells are. Cannot speak, especially at the end of the recording.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in to the Land of Theory podcast, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.